All right, so I'm ready to move on to a new track and a new device. But before I do, just a couple house cleaning things here. I decided that instead of changing the pitch of the 808, that I would just transpose the synth clips. So these have both been transposed from the key of C minor to G minor, and it sounds a little bit different now. But now it's in tune with the kick, and I think it all works better, and that'll be cool. Another thing I want to do before I move on, I haven't actually mentioned this yet. I probably should. I have these clips. Like I said, they're organized in scenes, and that'll make it a lot easier to record an arrangement eventually. And I want to make sure the same drum beat is going to be in the second scene. So if I don't want to launch the individual clips, I can just press play up here. So with all that said, I want to duplicate the clip. I could right click on it and choose duplicate, which is there. And I could also go to the edit menu up here and choose duplicate, but I duplicate all the time, and I have this pinned to my toolbar. The shortcut is Control or Command D, depending on your platform. Anyway, duplicate that. Now it's both in both scenes. All right, I want to add a new instrument track, and in the new instrument track, we're going to load a different instrument type, which is the PolyGrid. The PolyGrid is another amazing thing about Bitwig that's very unique. And it's a sound designer's playground. But this can be very simple to play with. So we're going to start with the basics here. I need to go to the device panel. Let me press D. All right, here's the PolyGrid. Doesn't look too fancy right now, but what I can do is if I click in the background here, or if I hit the show expanded device view, look at that. All right, we can see some things that look almost like what we saw with Polymer. I see the same union oscillator. I see an ADSR envelope, and then I see this here, which is my audio output. The PolyGrid allows me to create pretty much any sort of synthesizer that I can imagine. And you have all these different module categories. All these different modules can be connected in various ways. And all of these generate specific types of signals, whether it's audio signals, envelopes, or phase. And you can utilize these in a lot of different ways where you're not penalized for connecting things that may not really make sense in a different context. So without getting too deep, I just want to start off with a very basic example where we can take this initial patch and change it in some meaningful way. All right. This is the default setting for PolyGrid, so anytime you open it, you'll have the same thing. Some basic grid concepts to understand. All right. The color scheme here is relevant. Usually when you see red, that means that it's audio. So this oscillator outputs an audio signal. The audio signal goes into my envelope, and this is an amplitude envelope generator. So when I play a note, this triggers the envelope, and then we move through the 4 stages of this envelope: attack, decay, sustain, and release. And this controls the shape of the amplitude over time. Longer attack. It's got to fade in. If my sustain level is high, it's not going to decay to a lower sustain level, etc. All right, let's say that we want to change some things about this so that it sounds a bit different or responds a bit differently. Oh, before I get to that, I should make it clear. The whole reason why this envelope gets triggered when I play a note is because it's already responding to note input. We see there's an icon here. This is known as a pre-chord. This is basically going to respond to any MIDI gate messages because it's already set up to do so. I don't have to connect anything for that to happen. If I was to turn this off or deactivate it, when I play MIDI notes, nothing, because now I need to manually connect something to this input here. Now, again, initially, if you're not used to this sort of scenario, this can seem a little bit overwhelming. And this is why I mentioned the show help area in the inspector, because it's especially useful when you're in the grid. Every single module is going to show you what every input is expecting. Yellow typically means a gate or trigger. Once you get used to the color scheme and how things work, it's not that complicated. So let's start off with a basic modification here. I don't want to use this oscillator type, so I'm going to change this to something else. I could either right click on this and I could replace it with another oscillator. That would make sense. Let's go for, let's try Swarm. How about that? Nice. Okay. Now, Thankfully, we have the output here. All right, it's kind of bright. I don't like how bright it is. I'd like to maybe be able to filter this, and I want to be able to apply a filter before the amplitude envelope. So I need to put some sort of module in between this signal path. Well, I could either right-click in the background to bring up different categories and filters here, or I typically like to bring it up at the top because then you can visually see the different modules. All right, so let's just go ahead and try a state variable filter, SVF. When I bring this in, there's a couple different things I could do. I could either bring it in and just drop it here and manually patch the output to the input. Again, the red input, that's the audio input. The red output is the audio output. And I can connect it like that. All right. Or what I could do, and what's really convenient once you get used to this was patched like this before. Let's just take the filter and just drag it onto the output of the oscillator. And now it'll insert itself in that signal path. Okay, nice. We'll take it one step further before we go too far. Maybe I want to be able to take two different oscillators and blend between them before we get to the filter. All right, well, if that's the case, I can go into the mix category, and here is a blend module, and I'm going to click and hold and drag and drop this on top of the input for the filter. So now it inserts itself into that signal path. And with a blend, there's another input here, and then I can blend between these. Let's grab another oscillator. And in this case, let's go ahead and grab the wavetable oscillator. And I'm going to take the audio out from here and put that there. And just to make this nice and fun, let's grab something a bit more obvious. Open up the filter. There's my wavetable. Drop that an octave. Do some stereo detuning. Okay, not a bad start, and all we did was add some simple modifications to the default patch. Let's take it a little bit further.